I'll sit over here so you look like you're talking to a person. You don't have to talk to the camera.
All right, Paul. So why don't you go ahead and start by just giving us a brief introduction of yourself.
Okay. Paul Montagna, 33 years old. I was born in Virginia and grew up there. Joined the church when I was 17, almost 18 years old, and served a mission shortly after that when I turned 19 in Colorado. And that's it, yeah. And I went to school in Virginia, met my wife, and now we're here in North Carolina.
Like a billion kids.
I have a billion kids.
A billion kids. Or 4, going on 5. Okay, so what I mainly wanted to talk to you about today and ask you about was your conversion to the church. So the first thing I wanted to start off with, what did you grow up? Did you grow up religious? Did you grow up in a spiritual home? Did you go to church? What did your growing up spiritual religious experience look like?
We were not very religious. My last name is Montagna. It's Italian, so we're like 3rd generation, 4th generation Italian. So it's Catholicism.
Yes.
Really ingrained in our family. So that was my religion, but yes. I wasn't religious at all.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, my mom and dad, they separated when I was like 8 months old. So I grew up with just my mom, and she was like a really great woman, a Christian person, but didn't have like a church that she went to or believed in all the way. She just did her best to teach us good things, and she would mention God and say her prayers, stuff like that at night, but that was really the extent of it. We didn't have any spirituality in our home, at least not labeled that way.
Okay.
We were kind of like Joseph Smith growing up. Actually, we went to a lot of churches. My mom's friends at work and stuff would invite her every now and then, and my mom would be like, we need to do this. It will help us, so let's go. And we'd go, and my sister and I would just be so hard for my mom. We hated it. And so she just kind of got exhausted from us, and we never found one she really felt great in anyways. I've been to every church you can think of probably growing up.
Did those ever seem different to you? Was there anyone that stood out? Do you remember enough of it at all that you liked one more than the other for any type of reason?
No, I mean, I remember, it's hard for me to recall way back then.
Right, you were younger.
I do, like, if I really think about being a kid, I think, like, I had a reverence for like, religion, for God and Christ. Like, I think in my heart I believed in those things. I didn't know anything about it, though, like, other than what you see, like, in a movie or something
right,
like that. Okay. But I didn't really have a ton of faith in, like, the people who said they believed. Right. Because I saw such conflicting things because I knew them. Right. And, what they were saying or acting like on Sunday versus who they really were. And so I kind of saw the hypocrisy there, and I didn't give up on religion. I just didn't really see the need to like pursue that. Right. And my life was happy. My mom was a really strong person and made life great despite our challenges, and didn't feel like I needed anything or knew that I needed anything. So
right, you didn't feel like you were missing anything.
No.
Okay. So what led you then to the church when you were 17? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't just like wake up and find it one morning.
Yeah, so I had a friend in high school. It was a girl. So our freshman year, when you're like in high school, different schools combined. So I hadn't met her. She was from a different middle school. And so I met her in 9th grade. I had a class with her, I think. And just was always impressed with her because she just was different. She stood out. She was always dressed modestly. She was very smart and always happy. She's just always, that's one thing I remember. She was always like so happy and positive. And I thought she was cute, which...
Of course, that helps.
Yeah. I don't want that to be
the reason.
I gotta make that so clear. But it could be a factor
to attractiveness.
No, the Lord works and He's smart. But I was attracted to her, but it wasn't just like her physical. It was everything about her, and she was a light. I was intrigued. I'll say that. I was intrigued by her. And then in my sophomore year, we ended up having class every day together, and I remember the structure, but it was like we had this one. You always had one class that was every day. I had with her, and so I just got to know her better. I sat close to her and I talked to her, and I was pretty outgoing in high school. I didn't care about who was who or what. I liked everybody. Everybody was cool with me, and so I noticed that people did not really engage with her very much.
Okay.
And I was kind of intrigued by that because I'm like, she's so great. Why does no one know she exists? And so it made me more like interested in her, I think, and getting to know her. So I just kept getting to know her, and then I think it was our junior year. I may have this reversed. It might have been the junior year we had every class together, but that's when I got to know her even better. And so my friends in high school, once you like, you're talking to a girl all the time, they start thinking, oh, Paul likes Tamara. Her name is Tamara. And so they were, interested in like hooking us up. And so they were kind of pushing this more and more. And I was just, they asked me questions about Tamara. And so I didn't know, and I'd go ask her. And so slowly she would teach me about her church. She was a really great missionary, without probably trying to be. She just always answered my questions. She knew what she was talking about. I got to, I was just fascinated the more I learned. She went to like seminary before school. I thought that was
seminary.
Oh, that was crazy, because it was hard enough for me to make the bus at whatever time we started school. And here she is doing all that. It was nuts. So I was just amazed. I was seeing someone who actually lived their religion, and quietly. She wasn't boastful about it. And so I was amazed by her. And then it's hard to remember events as they happen, but I know we started to hang out together more outside of school. Her dad was a bishop.
Okay.
And she had 5 sisters.
That's a lot of girls.
So that was like something I'd never seen before. And I was really amazed by them because I was like, man, they're all like her. Like, it's a whole family of them. And they weren't perfect, but they were just really good people. And her dad, which is interesting, he was a convert in his early 20s. And so, now that I know him very well, know all this about him, so it's funny to look back and that's probably why he let me hang out around his daughter so much, because he had hope, I guess. But I spent time with them in their house. They had pictures of Christ in their house, and it's pretty traditional LDS home, and just never saw anything like this. I mean, this never was around this stuff growing up. So I just became more and more intrigued by her. I was learning about her. I was standing up for her to my friends in school. Nothing changed with my relationship with them, with my friends. We all did the same stuff and hung out, but I was spending more time with her, I guess, one-on-one. So yeah, one day I remember, again, the order is foggy, but one time I did ask her, if I could come to church, because I wanted to see what this was about, what it was like, and to support her because of all the talk that goes on in high school. And so that's funny now looking back. She's probably like, yeah. But she's just cool about it, and was just like, yeah, come on over. Before I went to Sunday, she told me they played basketball because I love basketball. And so she told me the youth played basketball every Tuesday night, and so I said, I'll come do that. That was easy enough. I love basketball. So I started doing that. And so they had mutual Tuesday nights, and then they played basketball. Okay. So I was coming for basketball, and then eventually I started going earlier and going to mutual because I became close with the young men's president who played basketball with us. His name was Scott Winterton, and he was a huge part of all of this. But we got really close. He was a young guy. I think he was a grad student at the time. Okay. He had 2 or 3 kids, and he was like a 17-year-old. He was super fun. And he played lacrosse at BYU. He was a really good athlete. So I got really close with Scott. Scott kind of took it to the next level because he, Tamara wanted to kind of maintain the friendship and not push it. And he was more like a leader who was really interested in teaching me and like a coach, like a gospel coach. Yeah. And so our lessons before, if I'm going too long,
Not at all.
Yeah. Our lessons before in mutual, before basketball started to become tailored for Paul. It was like, what does Paul want to learn about now? And so, but I felt really loved by that. I mean, I knew they were going out of their way to help me. There was very few youth. There was like one other priest, I know that, and then like 2 or 3 other young men. Tamara's sisters made up a lot of the youth. And in our high school, I think that there was only 2 members of the church, her and another girl that was older. And another guy, Dallin Hardy was his name. So I got to know a lot of the youth, and as a convert, it was different because I had nothing in common with these people. I mean, I really loved and respected them, but we didn't share the same interests. Obviously, our backgrounds are night and day different. They kind of, to be honest, fit that kind of like nerdy church-going kid.
Yeah.
But they were so kind and good, and I didn't care about anything else. They were just good people, and I knew that. So I just got close with them, and eventually I remember I started going to seminary, and I just started to change and challenge myself because I was feeling good. I didn't know what that was. I just knew like I wanted more and more of this, especially when I was in Tamara's home with her family and stuff. I remember one day I was over there at night, and her dad was like, "We're gonna have our family prayer. Do you want to go before you leave? I mean, before you go, do you want to kneel with us and pray?" I was like, "Okay." Never done this in my life. I don't think I ever kneeled and prayed in my life. Like I remember laying in bed and praying like a time or two, but that was it. And so like we all knelt in this circle, and it was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. This is like little tiny girls, kneeling next to me, and they were so sweet. I mean, they loved having me in the house, like the little ones.
Right.
And so, and then her dad prayed, and it was super sweet. And I just remember driving home and just feeling like, man, I want to feel that forever.
That. I want that.
Yeah. And so, those experiences just all the time were happening all the time. And at some point, I knew I was going to join the church, but I didn't know how that works. I didn't know when to do that. I hadn't met with the missionaries. I knew who they were. Scott was doing a lot, like I said, a lot of the groundwork. He was teaching me, and man, I could not get enough of Scott. Like anything he wanted to say, I would sit for hours and just listen to him. I could not get enough of his.
That's amazing.
He's an amazing teacher. So he did a lot with me, and he would, if he was going home teaching, he'd bring me along. If he knew there was someone in the ward or something that needed help, he'd call and ask me.
And you just went?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
That's amazing because it's like pulling teeth, trying to get kids that grow up in the church, and you're like, hey, now we need to do home teaching. It's like, I can't ask somebody else.
Yeah.
That's
amazing.
So
there's a good example of like what's tough as a convert when you see that, because that's hard for me to understand that.
Right.
Because I would have done anything to go out with Scott and do these things, It wasn't like that for me.
Right.
And I think, looking back, I think the biggest thing was being around Scott. Was probably what I loved the most. The service and all that worked its magic, as I was doing it.
Right.
And I knew it was good to do. And I got close to a lot of people doing that. But I loved being around Scotty because he was teaching me so many great things. And he's a great example. And I wanted to be like Scott. So he was slowly teaching me a lot. I met the missionaries doing that. I remember we helped someone move, and the missionaries were there. And I'd seen them in church, like on Sundays. I did eventually go to church on Sunday. I asked Tamara, like I said, if I could come.
I assumed that you were going to church if you were going to seminary.
Yeah, I actually think I started doing seminary first.
Wow.
Yeah, if I can remember right. Could be
That's
wrong,
amazing.
but so the first time I went to church was Fast Sunday, and never seen anything like that in my life. It's just like anyone can go over there. Like when I grew up, I just remember churches being like, no one made a sound, or you were dead. Mom was going to kill you. Everyone was super quiet, and the pastor, the preacher spoke, or there was a live band.
Nice. I do think that is something we should use in our church.
We could use.
I feel like that's missing.
Some better music for sure.
But that's okay.
So I'd never seen anything like that, but the one thing I remember about my first Sunday was being like blown away that everyone was like Tamara, like in my eyes,
Right.
I was like, man, there's hundreds of them. They're all so great, they're so kind.
It's not just Tamara. There's a whole family, and then there's a whole more.
Yeah, and they I guess as a convert, you feel so loved because you have so much attention.
Oh.
You know, like,
who are you?
Who is this guy? And I didn't realize that. Now I understand. Like, I stood out because they've never seen me before, and they know that I was friends with the Olivas. That's their Tamara's last name. And so, yeah, I got so much love and embrace from everybody. I didn't want to leave. That was the first time I ever went to church and liked it in my life, much less like wanted to stay. And so, yeah, I asked the bishop because I knew there was another meeting. I asked, like, can we stay for the other one? And he's like, you can. But I ended up going. But I would have stayed for 8 hours. Like, I just loved it. I was hungry, man. I was getting fed. Man, it was amazing. So that went on for a long time. I later found out that Tamara told the missionaries, like, my first Sunday, she's like, don't, like, scare him away. You know, she just kind of asked him to not approach me yet. And so I did not, from the first time I went to church till I met with missionaries, was like 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a long time.
That's a long time.
And I think it, you know, the bishop and they probably didn't care because they knew I was a Scot all the time and pretty much a missionary. But at that point, I knew the missionaries' names. I knew everything about them. I was friends with them. And they came up to me one day after we played basketball on a Tuesday, and they asked if they could come and teach me. And I already knew I wanted to be baptized. And I said yes. And my mind was, I want my mom and sister to have to hear this. You know? And so that's what I was excited about. I already knew where I stood. And so they came. My mom was hearing all kinds of stuff at work about Mormons. And so she was naturally, like, wanted to see what was going on here.
Of course.
So she told me, she said, I just want to see what you're getting into. So she sat in. And I knew if my mom would listen, it would be so easy for her to, like, love this. And so my sister was 3 years older than me, not interested at all in church. She was actually at, like, the rock bottom of her life. It's, like, the worst timing for her to be open to that. So she wasn't interested. But my mom was there, and Scott came to all of our lessons because she was a single mom.
That's amazing.
And I was under 18, so we had to have a male. So Scotty came. And we just went through the lessons. And
that's amazing.
It was awesome. I mean, every time they left us something to do, as soon as they left, I'd do it with my mom. We'd read, we'd talk about it. You know, I was telling her, and weeks before this, I'd been telling her about Scott. And she loved Scott. I mean, they were already close. She was close with her family, with his wife. And it was just easy. It was like, just already had this.
Do you feel like, you said you already knew that you wanted to be baptized. Do you feel like there was a moment or like a specific experience where you knew or learned that, gained a testimony of the church and said, yes, I want to be baptized? Or do you feel like it was more of a process and a realization?
I'd say more of a process realization.
Okay.
I mean, I remember, you know, I was trying things like going to church. Fasting, I was trying that. I went to seminary. Anything I learned about, I would just do it. You know, I'd start trying to do it. Like I cleaned up my language. You know, all my friends. Yeah, I just like, this is how I'm gonna be, and they didn't. They were just like, they were probably thinking like, what is going on with Paul? But they were very respectful and supportive of it. And like I said, nothing changed with them. I still did the same things. We played basketball, played video games, hung out at each other's house. But you know, I didn't do anything different. I wasn't doing anything bad before, I guess, but I was changing. And so, yeah, I remember Tamara talking about praying one time, so I was like, oh, I'll start doing that. And I didn't even know how to pray, so so I remember the first time I actually knelt down and prayed, and I felt ridiculous, but I just kept doing it. And, you know, I think hindsight, it's like Heavenly Father's probably so happy to hear from someone who's never prayed. You know?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I can imagine that was probably a more sincere prayer than he's heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, so I've tried to maintain that sincerity. You know, that's the challenge once you become a member of the church. But I just kept doing those things. I remember a big moment though was one of those mutuals. Scott was like, he said, "We're gonna do a special lesson just for you today, Paul." And he pulled me in a room. It was just me and him. And then the missionaries were in the back. And so I was like, hey, guys. But they didn't talk. They just kind of sat behind me. And then there was another kid that was with me. he was younger than me, and I think he was like a less active kid.
Okay.
Like his parents weren't really active, but he would come, you know, when Scott brought him and other things. So Scott just said, today we're going to talk about the Book of Mormon. You know, he'd known that I had heard of it by now.
Right.
And he said, I want to talk to you about this book and how this church began and all this stuff. And I knew Joseph Smith. Well, I heard the name. And he said, I'm going to tell you about Joseph Smith's story. And so he just sat me down, basically taught me like a first lesson, a missionary lesson. And he just told me the Joseph Smith story. And we read from the scriptural account that Joseph Smith gave or wrote down.
Did that seem crazy to you to hear that story?
No, that was probably the most powerful moment I'd had to that point, because it was just like teaching a kid. I just knew this was true. I knew everything. I related with Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd seen all these, you know, different denominations, and you know, how I've asked myself, like, especially as I was starting in the church, like, why is there so many churches? Why does this person say you have to be baptized and this one doesn't, or you have to do it this way or that way?
Mm-hmm. And
so I could relate with him. You know, like I said, we went to a lot of churches growing up, just like the Smith family, and I would have jumped off a cliff if Joe Smith had said the job. I mean, I knew that he was telling the truth, and I was smart enough to know like what was going on. Like, this is a 14-year-old kid. There's no way he made this up. I mean,
right.
I could hardly write a good sentence, much less the
translate a scripture.
Yeah, and like the way he wrote is so well said and eloquent and stuff. Very good at expressing the feelings. So he was able to say what I was feeling. Mm-hmm. So that's what really stood out to me about Joseph Smith. It's like, I know exactly what you're saying. Like, I know. And so he gave me a Book of Mormon. Scott gave me a Book of Mormon. He's just like, you know, challenged me to read it and pray. So I read it in 2 weeks.
Wow, you read it in 2 weeks?
I never read a book in my life. I mean, I read like, it's funny because I failed my 9th grade English class. And I had to take it in summer school and read like 3 books. And that was the worst summer of my life. And so, yeah, so I couldn't put it down. I mean, and I understood it. And I know, I didn't like grow up reading the Bible or anything like that, mm-hmm. but I know that like scriptures in general always were confusing to me.
Right.
And just hard to understand the language. And so, as soon as I started the Book of Mormon, it was just like, man, I understand this, obviously at a small level, but I just loved it. It was that feeling I was feeling at Tamara's house, with Scott, at church, service, where it was like, just so powerful.
Right.
And I knew, like the changes that I was feeling in like my day-to-day life, and my, like I said, conversations with people, what I did, how I spent my time was all changing, everything for the better. And so, yeah, I read it. I didn't have to pray about it, but I did because that's what they told me to do.
I'm amazed at how obedient you were. I'm amazed that you know, anytime they asked you to do something, you just did it. I mean, I feel like that's such a struggle. Is that another difference that you see a lot of times between being a convert and those perhaps that are raised in the church? Or is that just your personality? Or are you just super obedient?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm super obedient. Looking back, I was a really good kid for my mom. Like, compared to my sister. My sister put her through the ringer. But like, I hated this with my mom. I hated to like her to come home and say the dishes still aren't done. You know, and she was just at work all day. I'd go, oh, it's like stabbing in the heart. You know?
Oh.
But I don't know. I think I was just feeling the Spirit so much, so strong that like the Lord was just changing me. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have kids now, and one day they're gonna be 17 years old, and I hope they can want it. I think I just wanted it. That was the difference. I wanted. I think if you grow up feeling that Spirit all your life, it's not as profound because you're used to it.
Right.
And for me, it was profound.
Yeah, I remember when you first moved here, you gave a talk in church, and it was probably the best talk I've ever heard because it was so sincere. And I remember you talking about how the gospel isn't ordinary.
Yeah.
That's what your talk was. And I really feel like that is your testimony, and that's what you believe. Like you and like your mission is to make people realize that the gospel isn't ordinary. And I think that we struggle with that when we are born into the church. We take it for granted. It becomes ordinary. It becomes routine because it is routine to us, but it's never ordinary, even if it is routine.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just summed me up right there. So yeah, I feel that is like my mission now, is to cheer the members of the church on. It's like a role reversal, but in a different way, because it's weird because I've been a member now for 17 years.
It's okay, you don't have to admit your
almost
age.
16 years, something like that. I've almost been a member as long as I wasn't a member of the church. So when I'm 34, that will be the day. But yeah, and I still feel like that little kid. Like I still feel that way every day. Even when I see members do things, I'm like, when I read the Book of Mormon, it's the same as when I first did. It's like I get excited, and I feel like I did when I was first read it. So I'm grateful. I pray all the time that I can keep that, because I feel like it's important. It's like my fuel. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know how to give that to another person. I don't think you can.
No, you can't.
I wish I could, because I have kids.
Right, of course.
Hopefully they're gonna have their everything about their lives is different than mine.
Of course.
They have two parents. They have the gospel. They're stable. Like I'm making that up as I go. But.
No. So, how did your life change after you were baptized? So after you were baptized, your mom did not get baptized.
She did.
She did?
Yes.
What?
So
I didn't know that.
Yes, she was baptized the same day as me. So.
No way. Okay, so is she still active?
She's not active, but she still lives the gospel. Okay. We joined the church in Charlottesville, and we were so close with that ward. Like when we got baptized, it was so big. They took us out of the relief side room, moved us to the chapel, and they had to open the overflow.
Oh my goodness! I don't think I've ever been to a baptism that had that many people.
Yeah, and I didn't know any different. I mean, I don't think I went to one before.
That's phenomenal.
And I was like, wow, this is so great. so much support. That's really a similitude.
That's how it should be every time.
That was how every day was as a member. For me, like before I joined the church. Everyone was that loving and supportive. And I thought that's how it was for everybody. Right. But they showed me how to be, a ward as well, and how to support someone coming in. And I really, that was a hard thing on my mission too, because I wanted everyone I was teaching to have that experience, and it was hard. But yeah, and when I remember the font, there was people standing up and into the hallway, because it was a small little room that the font was in. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And like all my friends from school came, their parents and stuff. Like it was
That's amazing.
But yeah, so my mom got
your mom got baptized, but you went on a mission. Was that difficult for your mom and your sister, or were they very supportive?
I mean, it was hard for my mom because she was very supportive. Right. But it was hard because she was my mom.
Of course.
Just like every mom. But I think maybe we're a little unique because we were very close. She didn't have a husband, and my sister was wearing her out. Super tough time. And so my sister didn't say much. She thought it was dumb. She thought religion in general was dumb. So yeah, she kind of resented that we were doing this together. Right. She always thought
she felt left out.
She always thought that I was the favorite kid. But she still to this day carries that with her a little bit, instead of realizing that like she was making mom's life
harder,
a living heck. Of course she was happier with me.
Right.
So yeah, my mom was extremely supportive. None of my family was supportive. My dad actually had the audacity to call my mom. I mean, he's never been involved in our lives, right? He calls my mom and he's like, you can't let Paul do this. You got to talk him out of this. And I'm like, just hilarious, right? And she always handles these things great. She's in a loving way. She dealt with it. But all my family were like that to some degree. A lot of them just didn't say anything about it. They just like probably thought we were weird. I don't know. But I wrote them all of my missions. I wrote my mom weekly, and she would print them, like photocopy them and send them an email to family and stuff. So they knew what I was doing. They couldn't escape.
Right.
This is kind of cool. In the MTC, I was looking, before I ever went to MTC, I was like, I'm going to find missionaries going to Virginia, and I'm going to give them all of my families and friends information. So
that's amazing.
In our little district, our area, there was, sure enough, a group of sister missionaries going to Virginia.
Nice.
And I was like, ugh. So I staked them out, found the most solid sister I could find, and I gave her all my family's contact, all my friends, and she lives in Apex.
No way.
We just found this out. We just had dinner with him like a couple weeks ago.
No
For the
way.
first time. Yeah. Do you
That's
know Aubrey Woman?
amazing. No, I don't
Aubrey
know.
Woman?
No.
Crazy, right?
That's
Crazy.
What are the odds?
So great. So she was an amazing missionary, and I knew that from the start. So I gave her all this. We kept in touch. I wrote her on my mission, just following up.
Yeah.
She finally served in some of my family's areas and like knocked on my uncle's door and talked to my uncle and stuff. And super cool. And then none of them would let her teach them.
Still,
but
I can't believe you staked him out. That's hilarious.
yeah,
I think that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, the one thing that's hard as a convert is I don't have any clue why I'm the one that like got this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because all my family's amazing. So
Right.
I'm like determined to share this with them. If I have to shove it down their throats, I'm gonna do that. But, it doesn't work that way. But I just wrote them a letter from the beginning, like if a missionary ever knocks on your door, just be nice to him. Yeah.
Right.
Just think this is Paul, and be nice to him. So they did, and she'd write me back and follow up and stuff, and yeah,
That's
super
great.
cool. Yeah, but when I got home from my mission, we could talk about that for hours because
Amazing.
that was just too good for words. But I got home, and before I got home, I knew it was that I had changed in a way that I could never explain to my friends and family, that they're never going to understand, and they probably haven't changed much. So I'm going to come back into this world that is the same, but I'm not.
Right.
And that's probably true with most missionaries. But,
Right.
so I wrote a letter. I knew it was going to be that way, so I wrote a letter to everyone, told them what I'd been doing the last few years. And I wish I have a copy of it somewhere, but yeah, I just wrote my testimony in it. I asked them to, and I did it in a real non-threatening way, like, please talk to me about anything.
Right.
Like, you ask me questions, and whatever, and I can't remember anything I said in there, but had my mission president revise it for me, read it, and he liked it, so we sent it out. I sent it to everyone I knew. I mean,
Wow.
family, friends, etc., neighbors. And like no one talked to me about it. Like no one brings it up. But all of my family, all of them, even the ones who gave the most persecution and like doubt, and they all acknowledged that it was a good thing for me. Like I came home and they knew I was different, and they knew why, and there was like no denying
that it was good.
that it was good, no denying. And so all of their hearts have changed a lot over the years. A lot of them. They're very open. Also, being married and having our family they've seen more.
Yeah.
And I knew from day one. I told Courtney, like, you don't understand what this is going to be like for my family. Like,
Right.
just to see two people get married and get along and be kind and like have kids. And that's exactly what it's been. They all love us. They think we're crazy for having 5 kids, but they love our kids.
Right.
And they love
Yes.
reaping the benefits of our work.
Yes.
Yeah. So. I think they all would say the church is good at this point. You know,
Okay.
so huge change in there.
Good. I love your perspective, and I have only recently come to feel that kind of like fire and oomph, like in my own self. And so, what do you think is something that you would say to current church members to try and feel that same passion that you feel?
Man, I've been a ward mission leader twice. This has been the question that I've asked myself every day. Like, how do we get this feeling? Man, I don't know. I think it's simple. I think, personally, I feel like if you read the Book of Mormon every day, it's impossible to not share that with people. Like, it's too good. It's too powerful to to not bring it up. So I think that works for me. I mean, that's what, when I read it, like I said, it's like the first time every time. But even life is so busy, and that's the hard thing.
Right.
Work, kids, life.
Right.
And it's hard because I want to only focus on that. And that's been a challenge for sure.
Right.
But that's what I'd say. Read the Book of Mormon every day.
That's a great suggestion.
And I think the desire, and I think doing what you're doing right now, just taking the time to actually think about it. Like, think about the first vision. Like, actually vision this, sit down and picture this happening.
Right.
And you have to tell everybody, it's so huge.
Right.
Like, look what people do about the Avengers movies?
I know, right?
They can't shut up.
I know. I've thought about this before, about like when you see a really good movie, the first thing you want to do is you want to text everyone, go see this movie. This was amazing. It was life-changing, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I really think that the thing that stops us really is fear. You know, and fear is the exact opposite of faith. Yeah. And so if we really want to have that, even just the desire to have it, you start praying for that desire to share it, and then try and build your faith and grow your faith. And then once your faith is big enough, you know, it overcomes that fear.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think some good advice is to start early, because when you're young, you have time. And like it's like learning the piano when you're 35 versus 13.
Yeah.
Same with the gospel. And you know, I was blessed to have 2 years like devote my time to studying the gospel. And now, because I have that experience, I always want that again. Like same with like when I first learned the church, I know that feeling, and I want to keep it all the time.
Right.
So if you just never even had that feeling, you got to start there, I guess, and just read Joseph Smith's story. Just read the Book of Mormon, pray about it, talk to someone about it. I think once you see someone else go through it, you know, it's funny because Scott to me walks on water. That man is like an angel from above, but he would say that that's what he thinks about me.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But I get it a little bit because I've helped people now join the church, and like you get it, how exciting it is and stuff, and and how good it was for his kids. Scott was his kids were always involved. You know, he had the missionaries in their home. He taught us with his kids nearby.
Right.
He always involved the kids, and he had his kids love me as much as he did.
Right.
And they still to this day do. I mean, just last few months back, we went to SVU's where we went to college, and he coaches there now. His daughters are there, and she, you know, his oldest daughter's like 20 something now.
That's great.
When she sees me, she runs and jumps and hugs me, you know, and holds on. Like, they love me so much because of the gospel, like the spirit we've all felt together, and so he was a great father in that regard.
And what's your youngest son's name?
Scotty.
Scotty.
After Scott.
After Scott.
So yeah, I don't know how to answer that question though. If I did, President Nelson would be calling me right now asking me what the answer is. I don't know.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for sharing your testimony.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Don't lose your fire.
There's so much more I can tell you.
Don't lose your fire.